Ethan's small ship shook as it entered the atmosphere of the moon called Yelra. The controls blinked red and alarms filled the cockpit. Something had gone wrong during the engine test. Sparks flew from the side panel, and smoke started rising. "Come on, not now," Ethan muttered, trying to guide the ship to a safe landing. The trees of Yelra looked like giant green claws reaching up toward him. Wind howled and lightning cracked the sky. The ship's boosters failed. With a loud crash, it slammed into the ground, bouncing once before sliding into the thick forest. Everything went quiet. Ethan opened his eyes. He was alive, bruised, sore, but alive. He unbuckled the straps and stepped outside. The air was warm and smelled like wet leaves. Thick vines wrapped around the trees, and strange bird-like creatures flew overhead. "Great. Stuck on an unknown moon," he said to himself. He checked the ship. The engine was damaged. Communications were down. The only way to survive was to fix the ship. But he had no idea what lived here or, who dot unseen, soft eyes watched him from the trees. She had been nearby when the ship fell from the sky. Her name was Solari, and she was no normal girl. Her fur-covered ears twitched as she listened. Her tail swayed gently behind her as she crouched on a thick branch, eyes fixed on the human. She had seen humans before from a distance, loud, cold, and always taking what didn't belong to them. Her people had learned to hide. The forest was her home now, and no outsider would ruin it. Ethan set up a camp just outside the broken ship. He lit a small fire, boiled some food, and tried to send a distress signal using a backup radio. It sparked and failed. "Right. Guess I'm on my own." Solari narrowed her eyes. He seemed calm, not dangerous. Still, she kept her distance. 2 days passed. Ethan worked from sunrise to sunset. He used tools to pull parts from the ship, trying to make the engine work again. He didn't harm the trees or chase the animals. He was quiet, careful. Salar began watching longer. Sometimes, she sat in the shadows, her tail wrapped around her legs. When he burned his hand on a hot pipe, she flinched. When he laughed at a bird landing on his head, she tilted her head, confused by the sound. On the third night, rain poured from the sky. Lightning hit a tree nearby, setting it on fire. Ethan grabbed his gear and ran to find shelter. A rock shelf protected him for a while, but water soaked through. "This is not fun anymore," he muttered, teeth chattering. Solari stood in the dark, watching him shake. Her instincts told her to leave, but something else told her to act. She stepped out from the trees. Ethan froze. Standing before him was a girl now, not fully human. Her eyes glowed faintly. She had soft brown fur on her ears and tail. Her hair was long, and she wore simple clothing made of woven leaves and threads. "Whoa," Ethan whispered. "Salar." I looked him up and down. "You are lost," she said in a calm voice. "You speak English?" Ethan asked, surprised. "Enough to warn you?" She stepped closer, but her voice became sharp. "I'm not a pet. Don't touch me. Don't follow me. I'm not here to serve you." Ethan raised his hands. "I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just crashed. I want to fix my ship and leave." Solari stared at him for a moment. Then she turned and started walking into the woods. Ethan hesitated. "Wait. Where are you going?" "There's a dry place. Follow or don't. I don't care." He followed. They reached a wide tree with roots that formed a hollow, cave-like shape. Dry leaves covered the floor, and soft moss covered the walls. She lit a small blue flame in her palm and set it inside a hollow rock. Warm light filled the space. "This is amazing," Ethan said, wiping his face. Salar sat on the far side, tail curled around her. "You can stay here tonight, then leave." Ethan nodded. "Thanks." They sat in silence. The storm outside roared, but inside it felt calm. After a while, Ethan spoke. "What's your name?" She looked at him. "Solari." "I'm Ethan." She nodded once, then looked away. Ethan lay back on the mossy ground, staring at the soft glow above. This place is peaceful." Solari said nothing. "You've lived here long? Since the invaders came? My people scattered? I stayed?" "I'm sorry. Don't be," she said. "I chose to stay." Hours passed. The firelight grew dimmer. Ethan started to drift off. Solari watched him closely. She didn't trust easily. But he hadn't lied. He hadn't tried to take anything. As he slept, she crept a little closer. His warmth felt comforting. She curled into a small ball near the wall, her tail tucked under her chin. By morning, the rain stopped. Sunlight peeked through the entrance. Ethan opened his eyes and found Solari sitting near him, looking out at the forest. "Thank you for the shelter," he said softly. "Don't get used to it," she replied, but her voice didn't sound angry. "Just tired," Ethan smiled. "I won't." They stepped outside. The air was fresh, and birds chirped. "I should get back to my ship," Ethan said. "Try to fix the engine. Don't destroy the forest." "I won't," he promised. "Say, Larai." Turned to walk away but stopped. "If you need help, yell loud." Ethan chuckled. "Got it." As she disappeared into the trees, Ethan looked up at the sky and whispered, "This moon just got a little less lonely." The forest was quiet that morning, but Ethan's mind was not. After spending the night in that strange hollow tree with Celery, he couldn't stop thinking about her. She was different, wild and strong, but also kind, even if she tried to hide. He made his way back to the ship and checked the damage again. Wires were burnt, the main engine coil was still cracked, and the signal transmitter was useless. "Yeah, I'm definitely stuck," Ethan muttered. He sat near the wreckage and opened a ration pack. The food tasted bland, but it gave him strength. His thoughts wandered to Solari. He wondered if she was still watching him from somewhere in the trees. He didn't say it out loud, but he hoped so. Hours passed as he worked. He pulled out tools, removed broken parts, and tried to rebuild a simple energy stabilizer. He wiped sweat from his forehead and stretched his arms when he heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned slowly, Say Lara stood at the edge of the trees. Arms crossed, tail twitching. "You're slow," she said. Ethan smiled. "I'm trying my best. Your ship smells like fire and sadness." He laughed. "Yeah, well, you try fixing a flying machine with burnt parts." She walked closer and looked at the tools scattered on the ground. She picked up a broken coil and turned it in her hand. "This is useless," she said. "You need something to replace it. I know. But I don't have a spare." Solari tilted her head. "Maybe I can help." Ethan blinked. "Really?" She gave a small shrug. "Only because you're a broken ship. We'll keep making noise, and I like quiet." Of course, Ethan said with a grin. Lara motioned for him to follow her. They moved through the forest, her steps light and fast. Ethan tried to keep up, brushing away vines and ducking under branches. The forest felt alive, like it was watching them. They stopped at a cave surrounded by glowing flowers. "What is this place?" Ethan asked. "Old machines," Solari said. "Crashed long ago. Maybe something useful inside." Inside the cave, the wreckage of an old alien vessel lay covered in moss. Metal bones of the ship stuck out from the ground. Ethan searched while Celery stood guard. He found a core similar to what he needed, though it was larger. "This might work," he said. "Then take it." As he pulled it out, a loud crack echoed from deep in the forest. Solari froze. "What was that?" Ethan asked. She sniffed the air, ears twitching. "Poachers? They're near?" "Poachers? Like hunters? They hunt rare things. Sometimes people like me." Ethan's face grew serious. "We need to go." They ran back toward the ship. Ethan carried the part, while Solari moved ahead, checking the path. When they reached the clearing, Ethan placed the new core into the engine frame. "It'll take time to connect this," he said to Solari. I looked at the sky. "We don't have much time. They're close." Ethan worked fast. Solari circled the area, using dirt and branches to hide any human tracks. When Ethan looked up again, the sun was lower, and shadows had stretched long. Lara returned and sat. Across from him, do all humans build things when they're scared? Sometimes, Ethan replied. It keeps our hands busy when our minds are full. She said, watching him closely. You're different. How so? You don't take, you don't command, and you say thank you. Ethan smiled. My mom raised me well. Solari's ears twitched again. We should stay hidden tonight. They might come. Ethan nodded. Same tree cave. No, she said. Follow me. Better place. They walked deeper into the forest. After a while, they came to a thick tree that had split open at the base, forming a tunnel. Inside, the space opened wide. Soft moss covered the floor, and warm air filled the hollow. Ethan sat down and leaned back against the wall. He looked at Solari as she sat near the entrance, listening. Do they come often? Ethan asked. The poachers? Not always. But when they do, it's never good. Have they hurt anyone you know? Solari's eyes dropped. They took my sister. Ethan's face softened. I'm sorry. I was too slow. Too weak. She spoke calmly, but the pain in her voice was clear. You're not weak, Ethan said. You helped me. You face danger alone every day. Solari didn't respond. Instead, she curled her tail around herself and stared at the small flame she had lit after some time. Ethan asked, Do you want me to help stop them? Solari looked up, surprised. Why? 'Cause no one should live in fear. And, you helped me. She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then tomorrow, we fight. The fire crackled between them. The silence that followed was not awkward. It was peaceful. Ethan stretched out, feeling the warmth of the tree and the softness of the moss. He was tired. But before he could drift off, he felt something press against his side. Lara had moved closer. She didn't say anything. She just rested her head lightly near him. Ethan didn't move. He didn't speak. Just let her rest. For someone who claimed not to be a pet, she now sat beside him with quiet trust. And even though she kept her guard up with words, her heart was slowly opening in the flickering light. Under the soft rustle of leaves outside, Solari's eyes closed. Within minutes, she was asleep in his lap. Sunlight broke through the trees, casting soft golden rays into the hollow tree. Birds chirped in the distance, and the forest slowly came to life. Ethan opened his eyes to find Solari still resting quietly against him. Her head was on his lap, and her tail lay curled beside her like a soft blanket. He didn't move. He just watched her sleep, surprised by how peaceful she looked. For someone who had warned him so strongly, she now slept like someone who trusted him completely. A few minutes later, Solari's ears twitched. Her eyes opened slowly. When she realized where she was, she sat up quickly, brushing her hair back and looking away. You didn't move, she said quietly. Didn't want to wake you, Ethan replied with a small smile. It won't happen. Again, she said, her voice firm but without anger. Ethan nodded. Sure. Solari stood up and stretched, her movements smooth and light. We need to check your ship. If those poachers are nearby, they'll find it. They left the hollow and walked back through the forest. Ethan carried his tool bag while Solari moved silently beside him. Though she didn't say much, her eyes scanned every shadow, every branch. She was alert. You really are fast, Ethan said, trying to break the quiet. Lara looked at him. That's how I stayed alive. When they reached the clearing, Ethan froze. Something was wrong. The ship looked untouched, but there were footprints deep and wide, leading from the trees to the side of the ship. Lara crouched near one. Of the prints? Too big for my people, she said. Definitely not yours. The poachers, Ethan said under his breath. She stood and sniffed the air. 3 of them, maybe 4. They looked around, but didn't go inside. Why? Not, they're watching, waiting. Ethan looked around nervously. So what do we do? Solari crossed her arms. We don't run. We trap them. He blinked. You have traps? She nodded. Many. Solari led Ethan back into the forest, to a hidden spot where thick roots and vines covered the ground. She showed him how to make trip lines from bark, how to cover spike pits with leaves. and how to place scent lures using crushed fruit. They hunt like beasts, she said. So we tricked them like beasts. Ethan followed her instructions, helping where he could. It wasn't easy, but he found himself enjoying the work. It reminded him of being a kid, building forts and playing outside. But this time, it was real land. Dangerous by evening, they had set at least 6 traps. They returned to the ship and waited inside, hiding behind the metal panels. Solari listened carefully, her ears twitching at every sound. "Do you think they'll come tonight?" Ethan whispered. "They always do," she replied softly. Just after midnight, the first snap echoed through the trees. Salar grinned. "That's one." Ethan peeked through a crack in the hull. He saw a shadow fall to the ground, caught in a net. Another figure rushed forward to help, but stepped into a vine loop and was yanked into the air. "That's 2, Solari whispered proudly. But then a loud bang shook the ground. One of the poachers fired a weapon. Energy bolts hit the trees and the side of the ship, sending sparks flying. Ethan ducked. "They're mad now." Solari's eyes narrowed. "Let them be mad. They're scared." Ethan followed her lead as they snuck out the other side of the ship and circled around. The remaining poachers were shouting, trying to find the ones who fell into the traps. Salar picked up a handful of red dust from the ground and threw it into the air. It floated toward the poachers, glowing faintly. "What is that, Ethan?" asked Spore Dust. "It makes them see what they fear." Soon the poachers began shouting louder. One screamed and fired into the trees. Another dropped his weapon and ran. Ethan stared in disbelief. "It's like magic, no," Solari said calmly. "Just nature. Just don't listen to it." As the final poacher tripped over his own feet and hit the ground, Solari walked out into the open. Ethan followed, holding up a metal rod. From the ship, just in case, the forest grew quiet again. "Say, Lair, I checked the traps. None of the poachers were badly hurt, but they were all unconscious or tangled up. She tied them with vines and marked their gear with glowing sap. When they wake up, the forest will watch them," she said. "You think they'll leave?" Ethan asked. "If they don't, they'll wish they had." They returned to the ship. Again, Ethan slumped against the side, tired but smiling. "That was amazing," he said. Salara sat beside him. "They won't come back soon, thanks to you." She glanced at him. "You helped." Ethan looked at her tail as it rested beside her. He wanted to say something but stopped himself. Salar spoke first. "You didn't treat me like a tool. Not like others did." "Why would I? You're a person." Her ears twitched again. "You're strange, Ethan," he chuckled. "I get that a lot." They sat together in the soft moonlight, the forest quiet once more. Solari leaned back and closed her eyes. "You're not what I expected from a human," she said. "And you're not what I expected from a foxgirl," Ethan replied. She opened one eye and smiled slightly. "I told you. I'm not a pet." "No, you're not," Ethan said gently. But as the night grew colder, Solari once again curled her tail near him and rested her head against his side. And just like before, she slowly drifted into sleep. The next morning came quietly. The wind was soft, and sunlight warmed the edge of the forest. Birds chirped in their usual rhythm, and the air smelled clean after the night rain. Ethan slowly opened his eyes and stretched. Solari was already awake, sitting on a branch above him. "You sleep like a rock," she said without looking down. Ethan rubbed his neck. "You always watch from up high. It's safer," she replied. "And it helps me think," he smiled, thinking about me. "No," she said quickly, but her tail swayed in a slow, gentle rhythm. They had fought off the poachers, at least for now. But Solari's face was still serious. Ethan noticed the way she scanned the trees and listened for distant sounds. Even in peace, she didn't fully relax. He stood up and grabbed his tools. "Today might be a good day to finish the repairs." Solari dropped down beside him. "Then we'll work together." "You sure?" Ethan asked. "I want you gone, remember?" she said with a smirk. "The sooner you fix your ship, the sooner I get my forest back." Ethan grinned. "Right. Of course." They walked to the ship. Forest had already begun to hide the poachers' tracks. It was as if the trees themselves wanted silence again. Birds had returned, and small animals moved through the undergrowth. Inside the ship, Ethan showed Solari the wires and circuits he had connected. "I still need to boost power to the core," he said, "and the fuel converter is weak." Solari leaned over and sniffed the wires. "This smells like old metal and fireberries." "That's because it's burnt plastic and battery acid," Ethan laughed. She tilted her head. "Humans have strange tastes." Together, they gathered what they needed. Solari climbed trees to find a special blue fruit that could be crushed into a thick, energy-rich paste. Ethan built a small solar collector using scrap metal. He also cleaned the ship's filter, which smelled worse than anything Solari had. Ever sniffed, by midday, they sat beside the ship, eating a simple meal-dried meat and the soft inner seeds of a forest plant Solari picked. Ethan watched her carefully peel the seeds. "You know everything about this place?" he said. "This place raised me," she replied. "I had to learn. Do you ever miss your people?" Solari didn't answer at first. She looked at the sky. "I miss the laughter, the sound of others nearby. But I don't miss hiding." Ethan nodded. "You're brave." "I didn't choose to be," she said, "but I had no one left to follow. So I became the one others would have followed." If they were still here, Ethan felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to say something, but Solari stood up before he could. "Come, we're not done." They worked until the sun began to set. Finally, the engine made a soft humming sound. The lights inside the cockpit blinked green. "You did it," Solari said with surprise. Ethan grinned. "We did it." He pressed a button, and the outer hull lights blinked in rhythm, one of the old Earth signals for safe and ready. Solari stared at the ship. "So now you'll leave." Ethan looked at her. Her arms were crossed and her face was calm, but her ears were flat. Her tail didn't sway. "Do you want me to leave?" he asked gently. "This is your sky." "Not mine," she replied. "And this is your home." "Not mine," he said. They stood in silence. "You know," Ethan said softly, "Earth has forests too. Not like this, but still beautiful." "I don't belong with humans," Solari said. "Not all humans are the same," Ethan said. "Just like not all aliens are the same?" Solari looked away. "I'm not a pet, Ethan. You can't keep me." He smiled. "I never tried to. But that doesn't mean we can't choose to stay together." She didn't answer. That night, they lit a fire under the stars. Ethan showed Solari how to roast one of her forest fruits. She showed him how to use its smoke to keep bugs away. They laughed more than usual as the stars shined brighter. Solari sat beside Ethan, her tail brushing against his arm. "If I had met you long ago," she said, "maybe my story would be different." "Maybe it still can be," Ethan replied. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes soft. "You'd really stay if you wanted me to?" She didn't speak for a moment. Then, with a soft voice, she said, "Maybe I don't want to be alone." "Anymore?" Ethan smiled. "Then you're not." Solari leaned gently against him, resting her head on his shoulder. This time, there were no warnings, no sharp words, just quiet and peace. The next day started with a silence that felt heavier than usual. The forest still breathed, the birds still sang, the wind still whispered through the trees. But something between Ethan and Solari had changed. They had shared a quiet night, sitting close under the stars. She had leaned on him without pulling away. Now, in the soft morning light, she was distant again. Ethan noticed it. Solari stood near a tree, her arms crossed, eyes watching the sky. "You okay?" we asked. Nodded but didn't speak. Ethan stepped closer. "I meant what I said, not in a rush to leave." She looked at him with a serious face. "And I meant what I said. I'm not a pet. I don't follow orders, and I don't belong to anyone." Ethan raised both hands. "I know, and I'm not trying to change you." Solari's ears twitched. "Then why are you still here?" "Because this place feels more like home than anywhere else I've ever been," Ethan said softly. "And maybe that's because of you." She didn't reply right away. Her tail moved slowly behind her, unsure. "You confuse me," she said at last. "How so?" "Humans come and take. They break things. But you just sit beside me like I'm not something strange." Ethan chuckled. You are strange, Solari, but in the best way. For the first time that day, she smiled. Come on, Ethan said. Let's do something fun. Solari tilted her head. Fun? Yeah, something that doesn't involve traps or fixing ships. She thought for a moment, then her smile widened. Follow me. She led Ethan through the forest to a hidden spot where a waterfall spilled into a clear pool. Rainbow-colored fish darted through the water. Soft flowers covered the ground, and sunlight sparkled on the surface like diamonds. Wow, Ethan said. This is beautiful. It's mine, Solari said proudly. No one else knows it's here. No, you've shared it with. Me, don't get used to it, she said, but her voice was playful. They sat by the water. Solari dipped her feet into the pool and splashed lightly. Ethan joined her, laughing as cold water hit his legs. When I was younger, Solari said, I used to come here and dream. About what? About not being alone. About having someone to laugh with. Sounds like we dreamed the same thing, Ethan replied. They spent the afternoon there. Solari taught Ethan how to catch the glowing fish using her hands. He failed again and again, slipping and falling, until she finally caught one and showed. It's a him with a grin. You're fast, he said. You're slow, she teased. I'm learning. He replied as the sun began to set. They lay on the soft grass beside the pool. Solari looked up at the sky. You'll still leave someday, she said. Ethan turned his head toward her. Maybe, maybe not. What if someone comes for you? What if your people send a rescue? Ethan stayed quiet for a moment. Then, I'll tell them I'm not ready to go. Solari looked at him, her face serious. What if they don't let you stay? Then I'll run, he said with a small smile. Maybe you'll hide me. Solari rolled her eyes but smiled. You're not very good at hiding. Then you'll have to protect me. Maybe. They walked back to the ship in the dark, the forest glowing with small lights from insects and flowers. When they reached the clearing, Solari stopped. Ethan, she said, there's something I didn't tell you. He turned to her. What is it? The poachers. They'll come back. It's not just the small. Group others, stronger ones. Ethan's face hardened. Then we get ready. You'd stay and fight. If you're in danger? Yes. Solari's eyes softened. Why do you care so much? Ethan stepped closer. Because you're not just someone who helped me. You became important. She didn't move away. Close to someone. I'm still learning. Me too, Ethan said. But I think we're doing okay. Solari took his hand gently for a moment, then let go. Then tomorrow we prepare. They stayed outside the ship that night. The stars above seemed brighter, and the air felt warmer. Solari sat close to Ethan, her tail brushing his leg. Rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, Don't leave me without saying goodbye. I won't, Ethan promised. And once again, she slowly fell asleep in his lap. The next morning, the forest didn't sing like before. The air was still, the trees didn't sway. Solari noticed it first. Her ears twitched, and her tail stiffened. She crouched on a branch, eyes locked on the western horizon. Ethan stood below, near the ship. He saw the change in her face. What is it? She didn't blink. They're here, the poachers. She nodded. Not the same ones. Bigger group. They're using sky machines. They'll land near the river by sunset. Ethan climbed. Up to her branch. How many? At least 10, she said. Maybe more. And they have stronger weapons this time. He took a deep breath. We should hide. Solari shook her head. No, we protect what's ours. This forest is my home. Then we defend it together, Ethan said. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Solari led Ethan through the deeper parts of the forest, places he hadn't seen before. They gathered glowing moss that released thick fog when burned. They collected sticky sap that hardened like stone. She showed him how to lay sharp branches under leaves, and how to mark paths to confuse enemies. Ethan used his tools to connect the ship's energy cell to a large stone. It created a pulse signal that would attract machines. We use this to trick them, he said. Make them think I'm still inside the ship. Solari nodded. They'll walk into the trap. They set the last net above the river path and covered it with branches. Solari placed scent trails to lead the poachers away from the real paths. She moved like the wind, fast, focused, and fearless. Ethan couldn't help but admire her. "You really are something," he said. She paused. "What do you mean? You fight for what you love? You stand even when you're alone, and you've protected me more than I ever expected." Solari looked at him quietly. "You gave me something too." "What? A reason to hope?" They finished the traps as the sun touched the trees. The golden light made Solara's fur shine. Her ears stood tall. Her tail flicked behind her. "They'll come soon," she said. Ethan checked his old laser tool. It was weak but still usable. "Then we wait." They sat behind a thick wall of roots near the ship. Silence filled the space between them. Not the awkward kind, but the kind where words weren't needed then. The sound came: wings, machines, heavy steps, poachers. They wore armor and masks, carrying rifles with blinking lights. Their boots crushed leaves as they moved in groups, scanning the forest. The fake signal led them closer to the ship. One stepped on a marked route. Crack. A net snapped up, trapping two of them in midair. One panicked and fired his weapon, hitting a tree and causing it to fall. The forest roared to life. Moss bombs dropped from above, filling the area with thick smoke. Shadows danced between the trees as Solari darted from side to side. Drawing their attention, Ethan triggered the second trap. Glowing sap exploded near the group. Sticking to their armor and slowing them down, Solara leaped from a branch, kicking a rifle from one of the poachers' hands. She landed on the ground, rolled, and vanished into the fog. Ethan rushed forward, grabbing the weapon and tossing it into a pit. He turned just in time to block another poacher with a metal rod. It sparked as the poacher's weapon fired, and missed. Solara returned, spinning through the air and knocking the poacher to the ground. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Ethan panted. "They're tougher this time." "So are we." More traps activated. Snaps, flashing lights, and smoke filled the area. The poachers were confused, shouting to each other, firing into empty space. But one of them had a drone. It flew high, scanning the forest. It found the real energy source, the stone Ethan had connected to his ship. The drone gave a signal, and the last three poachers turned toward the direction of the hollow tree. Solari's eyes widened. "They're going to my safe place." "Then we stop them," Ethan said. They ran together. The forest seemed to guide them. Trees opened paths, roots lifted slightly to give them footing. As if the forest itself wanted to protect Solari's home, they reached the hollow tree just as the poachers approached. Ethan stood in front of the entrance. "This is your last chance. Turn back," the lead poacher laughed. "Or what? You'll throw sticks at us." No, Solari's voice came from behind. She dropped from a branch and struck the leader's helmet, cracking it. Ethan rushed forward, tackling one of the others. The fight was fast. Wild, Ethan moved with heart. Solari moved like fire. Together, they pushed the poachers back. Finally, they stood over the last one. He dropped his weapon and held up his hands. "We're done," he said. "Solara," I stepped forward. "This forest isn't yours. Leave, and don't come back." He nodded, scrambling away. The forest became quiet again. Ethan sat on the grass, breathing hard. Solari sat beside him, her fur messy, her arms scratched, but her eyes calm. "We did it," he said. She looked around. "We protected it." He looked at her, really looked. "You're not alone anymore, Solari." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "And you're not lost anymore, Ethan." They sat there until the stars came out. The fireflies danced. Again, peace had returned, and that night, once again, Solari curled beside him, her tail wrapping around his side. She didn't say a word. She just rested in his lap, safe.